Thanks, everybody. Grateful that so many folks are here making time to focus on early learning at the end of what I'm sure is a long day in the middle of the week. Many of us have a 3-day weekend coming up, so that's at least a bit of help. I am going to share my screen and let me get us off music and into content. Although, of course, if we're talking early learning, we know how important music is to our early learners. So this is a picture of myself. I wish I was there with chocolate kisses and good handouts and highlighters on the table to engage us. But instead, you just get to see me in a small square on the screen. That's my colleague, Amy Treadwell, unfortunately not able to join us, but if you're a part of the IPA family, you know that that Amy and I have been doing presentations really focused on windows and mirrors for school leaders. So that's us with Cornelius Minor, one of our mentors, and we would love to see you at one of our longer sessions and get to talk about children's lit for a while. But today I'm here with a different lens, and I want to recognize that whenever we gather as an IPA community, we're thinking about this wonderful Mobius strip that shows us how we're always braiding, juggling, moving pieces that we're tending to. And if I really want to think about what we're digging into today, I want to recognize that we're going to be in that learning domain because we're sharing teaching resources for our pre-K, K, and we think things that could even be helpful for your first and second grade teachers. And as you think about the best way to share it, which we'll do some brainstorming around, we're also going to live in that learning leader space. So how do you leverage what you're learning today, taking it back to colleagues, whether you're a teacher leader, taking it back to the folks on your team, whether you're a principal or assistant principal, taking it to your staff. And some of these things you may even be interested in sharing with other folks at the district level, if you have family and community engagement staff, or with PTO or other family leadership in your building. So lots of ways we can leverage that that left-hand side of this beautiful diagram that helps us know what principals, what school leaders are working on when we're committed to the work at IPA. I also just want to put a couple agreements in the room because whenever we gather in virtual or real spaces, it's nice to sort of recognize how we'll talk, how we'll push each other. And I hope we'll have the chance for some Q&A when we get to the end of our session today. These are the agreements we use when we do our longer institutes as well. If they look familiar to you, if any of you have seen the movie Just Mercy or read Brian Stevenson's book, these come from his work. So that as we think about what it means to be growing, changing leaders, we're always open to the idea that we have to be close to the work, proximate to it, willing to change and hear things from other points of view. For some of us, that's like bending our early childhood muscles if we come from a middle school background. For others, it's really thinking about, all of us have been changing our narrative about the purpose of technology in our teaching and learning lives. The discomfort that comes from good learning, being right at that leading edge, how important it is to maintain hope, that if Brian Stevenson, who's defending prisoners on death row, can be hopeful, we can be hopeful. And again, really hoping that you'll commit and engage well, even if you know you're getting the video of this, just leaning in and participating with us today. So I'm going to ask you just quickly to throw a hello into the chat if you're able to do that. I think we'll have to do it through the by making sure that you hit that blue bar and switch it to panelists and attendees to just briefly and quickly say hello and what your role is and where you're joining us from. Then I'm going to take you onto the internet and we're going to look at a really powerful set of resources for early learning that have been curated by a team of educators and are being shared. And I have really good news about how that sharing is happening. Then I'm going to come in strong with an opinion on some of my favorites that are in that document to make sure I'm going slightly off the beaten path for some of these favorites to things I think people might not have seen yet. We'll have time for some Q&A, and then I'll just ask that you take and share your first next step. And I really hope that you will leave here familiar and comfortable, ready to share this resource out in your own communities. So if you can take that second to let us know, oh, I actually put a bonus question on here, using the chat out to all, your name, your district, and the number of pre-K and K classrooms that you serve. And then if some of you have had the chance to be in communication with your pre-KK folks, which I'm sure almost all of you are, it would be terrific if you could share a celebration of early learning this year. I've been trying to live in that space of gratitude and helping folks to focus on the positive as we've been preparing to lead some really large PLCs in some of the work I'm doing in Illinois. We've got Chicago educators to share out what's been working for them during the pandemic, just to sort of put us in a place of positivity. And I was super excited to get such robust answers from all of them that we ended up sharing this out to the larger community because it just generated lots of joy from others as well. So so this place of starting with, what's working, knowing that we have lots and lots of problem solving, lots of challenges that we're facing as well. So I see a couple folks coming in, putting that in the Q&A. Arlen, our chat is abled as opposed to disabled so that folks can chat out to panelists and attendees. Is that working?
At first it wasn't, Lisa. I had it turned off for all, but I just switched it to where they could respond to panelists and attendees. So feel free to use chat or Q&A, whatever you can get access to.
Okay, great. That's a great way to make sure that we're connecting. So here is the real work that we're doing today, though, and I really want to share out this resource. The Education Equity COVID-19 Response Fund, which is a cohort of foundations and leaders in the Chicago area, recognized that while lots of content was being made available to elementary and high school teachers in response to COVID, that there was really the need for a set of curated resources to respond in the early learning space. So we started, myself and Amy, who is unfortunately not here with us, but my colleague Amy Treadwell and several others got together with educators, with principals, with higher ed folks, even with some foundation folks, and started asking, what has been helpful for you, teachers? What has been helpful for you, directors? What's been helpful, higher ed folks, that you've seen that's very high quality in the early learning space? And we took that list, reviewed it against criteria, spent some time talking with ISB, I'll say more about that in a bit, and created a Google Doc that, that has started off with just over 50 resources and is now grown, that is really a curated set of tools and resources. So I'll say more about that, but this basically 2-slide document that shares a smidge of history and a bit of how it gets started is available as a handout, and all roads lead back to this link, bit.ly early learning teaching resources. And to be in that document using the bit.ly link, it's critically important that those 4 letters are capitalized. The E in early, the L in learning, the T in teaching, and the R in resources. And once you put that bit.ly link in, you will be taken to a Google folder. And I'm just going to spend a little bit of time previewing what's in this folder so that you can share this out with folks. So One of the most important things is that we've created a quick start here document. And for folks who are new to Google or new to curated sets of resources, this is a general overview doc that is basically the slide that I just walked you through, but has hot links to the videos and shares how to access the materials in a way that we found, and in getting feedback from teachers, is a teacher-friendly, educator-friendly way to find out about these tools. You can see as I start to open more and more tabs, my computer gets more and more frustrated. There we go, finally showing up. These are all view for everyone, so you don't have to worry about anyone editing or deleting any of this. So if we start here with this doc, it lets people know, okay, what is this tool all about? I'm going to go back to the folder and skip the videos for now and really get us into the main part of this tool. And it is this spreadsheet of curated resources. So I mentioned a minute ago that we shared these with ISB, and one of the pushes that we got from them several months ago when this was first developed is to make sure that this aligns, that when we recommend something, it aligns with the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards. So we went through all of the resources to double check that. And if you are familiar or have been using ISB's Keep Learning website, you'll see that we've met that bar of approval and this tool is up there. So if you're ever searching for it again and you're going to the Keep Learning site, I'll open that up in a minute for if folks haven't seen it. We know you'll have the opportunity to find us there. So when you open the main spreadsheet, the tools will be alphabetized. And I want to, a little bit of, rigmarole at the top, but what I really want to share first is that to search for something specific, we've organized the tools by the kind of resource it is. Is it a teacher-facing educator tool? Is it something that works well for families? Is it a professional learning tool? So a webinar, a professional read, or is it all, is the site or the resource really all three of those things? Then there's some other criteria that you can search through. The link and the extended description are most important. And then I want to spend a minute on this content focus. So we are organizing these materials in the short term around social emotional learning and health and wellness, numeracy, literacy, science and social studies, sort of taking that early learning, me and my world view, and then an equity lens. Is this a tool that specifically supports race or gender or language considerations that we know impact our early learning educators, classrooms, families, students? And you'll see we oftentimes include notes so that you'll have information, especially about that equity lens. That's really what we're using the notes column for. So I just uploaded this. You'll always know we put the date of the last update there. So there are now, we started out with 50 resources and now we're at 74, right? So double-edged sword with this. It's really important to recognize the power of being able to search through this using some of these criteria, the type of resource, especially if you're looking for something to use in your classroom, you don't want something that's just a family tool, right? And if you're looking for science content, we want you to be able to find the science content that you need as well. So I'm going to hop off screen for a minute just to share what I think is one of the most powerful updates. We've been getting really good feedback from folks on the quality of the content and the usability. So you are seeing this Google Sheet, and I'm so glad Arlen is taking attendance and checking in with folks, because this Google site, it's not even really a Google website, this Google folder is going to be flipped into a searchable website in the next 5 weeks now, really targeting that it will be up and running by March 15th, which is the first day of the Kids Summit. So those of you who know kindergarten know that here in Illinois, we use the kids observation tool in order to have a deep understanding of where our students are. And we see that alignment, of course, between teaching and learning and observation of students. And so the hope is that this website, fingers crossed, will be done and we'll be able to roll it out so that it looks much more like a searchable tile-filled site where all of the criteria that I just talked with you about, the type of tool and the content, and even things like cost, and is it focused on pre-K or does it go all the way through elementary school or all the way through high school, will be part of that database. So we're super excited that a local foundation in Illinois is funding that work, and it will allow this to live a much longer life and continue. And one of the things, I'm going to go to that Illinois criteria conversation again. One of the most important things we've learned from the conversations with ISB is that we want to make sure that this isn't just content that feels important and usable during the pandemic. Like, it's not just crisis response content, it's content that's powerful and meaningful across the learning year for families in the summertime. Can be used by teams of educators, right? So that it hits that quality criteria. And I say with candor and also a quest towards excellent, there won't be sort of a ton of resources here that are just virtual worksheets for kids. It really focuses on that bar of engagement and interactivity, but with a lens towards towards our youngest learners, our 3 through 6 year olds. So I'm going to hop back away from the tool and into the PowerPoint again for a minute, and share out this ISB Keep Learning site. If you haven't had a chance to be on that site yet, you know that it contains 2 things. I'll just share and show briefly. The state has and ISB Teaching and Learning folks have some recommended, some highlighted resources that are here that have been vetted by ISB and their team. And then you'll see that there's the early learning resources that'll take you to the site. And then there's a wide variety of additional resources that are here that may also prove helpful. And I just want to point out that you can search that through filters this way. And important to note, there is both an early childhood and a pre-K early childhood filter here. So if you're taking this site back to your team, make sure they know that there's a few different lenses that they want to use so that they get the most criteria. And this is just, I say that because it's part and parcel of how quickly we're trying to flip and get content into everyone's hands, right? So what else is in and on this folder? One of the things that we found is that it's really important for us to ask educators for feedback and updates. So you know that we started with almost 50 resources and we're above 70. Thanks to teachers, coaches, and educators, we have been getting additional recommendations. So we have a quick feedback page. And so the link to this is on the Start Here page. And the link to this is right here. So folks can give us feedback. And that link will live on the website as well, so that when this migrates out of a spreadsheet and into a website, we'll always be listening to educators saying, what else do you need? What more what recommendations do you have? And what else do you need? That feels really important. Not quite as good as talking with someone, but at least using Google in order to be able to do that work with them. The other thing that I wanted to spend a minute on is making sure you know that we've created a couple quick videos, each of them just about 5 minutes. So if you're missing seeing Amy Treadwell today, she's the star of all 3 of these videos. And I'm going to just pop one of them up so that you can see how easy it is. I don't have my sound maximized right now, but they're all done screencast.
Welcome.
I'm going to stop. They're all screencast. So you see Amy down at the bottom of the screen, and she's walking folks through how to use these resources. So if this hour-long webinar doesn't work for you, know that you can grab a 5-minute segment with Amy online in the folder and share and show that with staff as well. Really helpful. And if you, for any reason, want to go back to my presentation, you'll be able to click on the IPA presentation link that's now in the Early Childhood Teaching Resources folder and get the link to today's PowerPoint that I'm using with all of you. So we're trying to make this in the interim between now and a website, knowing that our youngest learners are also in need of well-curated, helpful resources. We wanted to get something up and running, and we've been able to do that quickly, and fortunately be able to find some good funding in order for it to become a stronger, more vibrant home for resources. So I'm going to catch my breath in a second, but I want to just share these reminders. This link won't change. So even when the website is up and running, we'll still be using bit.ly Early Learning Teaching Resources, and you'll get forwarded to the new website. I really recommend using the Start Here doc as a place for you or your colleagues to navigate the content. I want to remind you that rather than look at all 70 plus resources, that it is valuable, helpful, and important to think about the kind of resource you need or the content that you need, and that we are totally open to feedback and ideas around how to improve this site so that it can continue to grow. And best of all, in pink, and I should have put that in font 5 sizes larger, that the website is coming soon, and how grateful we are for that support and that that's coming. So I'm going to hit pause. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a minute. I'm gonna check the Q&A, double check that if folks need or want to ask a question here before I brag on some of our favorite early childhood resources. I'll pause and take some questions, and I'm also gonna check the Q&A. And I see we've got actual educators here. Thank you for those that are coming out of the classroom and have introduced themselves as well. Okay, so I don't have a long list, but I will try not to take up too much time, but I really want to shout out, as we were doing this work, some of the top resources that we found, things that that are new, that are from quality, beloved resources that have pivoted in order to lift up their work during this complicated pandemic teaching time. So I'm going to go back to share screen here. The other thing that I should note, I put that heart on there to remind me, is that these are my current favorite resources. And I will say that as the document has grown, I have grown, what I need at any certain time has grown and changed as well. It feels really worthwhile to note that we've gotten a couple pushes for some gross motor activities because of how hard it is for kids to be inside during snow and cold. And so again, please noting that this tool has been and will be responsive and dynamic as we continue to hear from educators. That's why we really appreciate you joining us. And if you're watching this after the fact, that you know that these links are still live and working. So I know that many of you may be familiar with Common Sense Media, which is a super popular site that gives a very honest view of technology. And many of us are using Common Sense Media in an even more vibrant way right now, because they talk a lot about digital citizenship and create digital citizenship plans that we can use for families. And if you're with older students, plans that we can use with students, and plans you can use in your house, to be really honest with you. And one of the things that I want to highlight that I think not enough folks know about Common Sense is that they've got an entire section inside their site that is in Spanish. I'm going to hit my translation, or close my translation, because I want it to stay there, and how helpful it has been to know that Common Sense Media is curating content for this. And it includes early childhood specific content in Spanish for families, and that there are tools and resources for both families that speak Spanish at home and families that are cultivating dual language learning as well. So I just want to really make sure that we recognize the power of finding things in home language, or recognizing some of us are cultivating dual language learners, and how wonderful this is coming from Common Sense Media. I also, and I think that many folks saw this on the front end of the pandemic, but I'm elevating it again, is Wide Open School. This is a Common Sense Media powered, I'm using their language, website that has incredibly responsive materials. You can see it's Black History Month, so there's Black History and Culture as one of the navigation bars right now. And I mentioned digital citizenship before. So if you are, and I want to just go to the language tab as well, because they've really paid attention, Common Sense Media has, to the need to translate materials. So you can see the wide variety of languages that they're using with Google Translate, which is really helpful for many of us in the places and spaces that we're teaching. So Wide Open School really can face families and face educators with activities and resources that are helpful for home learning, for school-home partnership, and also for educators who are looking to expand the resources they have, especially during the pandemic. There's some wonderful navigation tools, and I want to highlight this, that they are looking, and again, Common Sense Media is a nonprofit, so I want to highlight that, but they've added this ability to sort of get stuff sent right to your phone. That can be helpful to pilot if you're an educator for a couple of weeks and see if it's helping you create more content to connect back to your families, or if you want to share that resource with families, right? We really encourage everyone to find what works for them. We've curated for quality. You have to curate for the context. And really, we're trying to recommend the very best things that we can for you. So Common Sense Media, Common Sense Latino, and Wide Open School. 3 just high recommends from us. With a lens of early childhood, oh my goodness. This is not a teaching resource, although it impacts your teaching. This is one of our favorite professional development resources. I'm going to just take us back to the spreadsheet for a minute so that you can see one of the things that we've done is curate some resources that are for one of our types of resources are things that help us learn, right? So professional readings, webinars. So Christy Mraz is a beloved early childhood professional author and a coach, and she created this handbook for still cultivating play, something we value in Illinois for our early learners, right? We know that it aligns with the kids assessment. We know it aligns with some of the work that we're doing around equity. We know it aligns with what we know best about kids when we're thinking about developmentally appropriate practice. So Christy has created this handbook and has made it clear in her welcoming that she is using an equity lens, that she recognizes that anything that's being produced as quickly as she's producing it might have typos and omissions. She does some shout outs to some of my favorite educators right here, lets you know who she's following. And then she has written a wonderful book, a Heinemann book called Purposeful Play. And she then takes us into ways we can organize as families or as educators play at home. What that looks like from the screen, including language and activities and support for us. So as you skim through this, you might be thinking to yourself, well, we don't have kids, we don't have children that we have access to. So what does this look like? How do we cultivate and do that work? As you go through the document, you'll see that Christy's updating it along the way. She has links to learn more or to see how it's being done. She, full disclosure, a few times she takes you back to her own website where she's demonstrating and sharing and showing how to use these tools. So it's long, it's a 35-page document. It's not sort of a sit down by yourself on a Tuesday night and read in one sitting doc, but as school leaders, as teacher leaders, this is the kind of tool we want to elevate that is in the early learning teaching resources that educators could come together around to learn, to try new things, to try and expand their understanding. And again, that alignment to some of the things that we're really valuing in Illinois, like play, despite the challenges. I'm going back to Brian Stevenson reminding us that we have to operate from a place of hope, right? I want to shout out, despite the fact that I have emailed Encyclopedia Britannica, now known as Britannica, and I really wish that this was Britannica for families and not for parents, to sort of hit that inclusive language that's such an important part of having an equity lens. But Britannica has created a new section of their website that's vibrant. We think of encyclopedias. I'm 55, people of a certain age, remember pulling the book off the shelf. And now we know that encyclopedias have made that switch to a virtual space. But now this section of Britannica site is really focused on providing resources for families. And I want to note that there's some really, again, some sections organized around play, providing ideas across, starting with infants and toddlers, right? And this can be both a resource that you share with families, like Common Sense Media, if you want to have people getting newsletters or getting things to their box. But educators, it's also something we, as school leaders, as coaches, as early childhood educators, even we have a student teacher on here, we can be using this as a resource and then finding the best way to contextualize it for our families, right? So getting a weekly newsletter to your box, that's only in English doesn't feel right or helpful. You as a teacher can curate from Britannica to find what you need, or what you think families might benefit from, and share that out with them. So responsiveness from trusted names and partners. And I do just want to note that we've linked this to the power of play in our curated tools. I know that I've benefited from getting this Educated Parent newsletter. So I do want to shout out, even if all you do is, take a look at it yourself and start to find information that's helpful to share out with families, in a principal newsletter, with your community, on your school district site, that this can be really helpful. And I love this tagline, raising curious learners. The last thing I'm going to highlight might feel really strange. I myself have a high schooler, so Khan Academy feels like it's on 24/7 in my house because I'm not able to help my own students' math is tapped out my math ability. So we use Khan Academy as a resource for high level math. But I want to shout out this really lovely resource. Khan Academy hasn't curated this with new content since the middle of last month, but there are just about 60 videos here of circle times, each hosted by the really joyful Caroline, who often has a guest with her, sometimes a kid guest or a family guest. And you can see there's a wide variety of content that you can draw from. The shortest video is just about 10 minutes, and none of them are longer than 20 minutes, right? So again, a respected resource in the teaching and learning space, Khan Academy, their early learning twist on it. We've reviewed, I will say we haven't watched every single one of these, but we've watched a large handful of them to make sure that they are engaging and appropriate and joyful. And while you may have educators in your own building who are running circle time themselves, one of the reasons why we're highlighting this is because there may be, I know we have a student teacher popped on here. There may be the need for circle time if you have an unexpected substitute. There could be families that are asking, we want more content and more experiences. What does that look like in a way that really represents your school's beliefs about teaching and learning? So this can be an extension. It doesn't have to be core content. It doesn't have to replace circle time that your own teachers are doing. But we wanted to share a resource that really lifts up some of the values we hear from our Illinois early learning folks, the value of that powerful, joyful, song-filled, language-filled circle time that's presented in a playful, child-centered way. And so we found this resource to allow that to happen in a virtual space. It's curated. You'll add the context and think about what works best for you. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I underestimated what it would be like to talk for 30 minutes straight on early childhood materials. And I'm going to stop share again and just find out if there are chats, if there are questions or anything else in the chat that I haven't had a chance to see yet. If anyone, Arlen, you hold most of the power here, but I did save some time here at the end. If folks have questions or comments that they want to put into the room about how things were curated, what we're recommending, or how to access the resource.
At least I put a link to the folder, the Google folder with your bit.ly. Hopefully that's working for people in the chat. So I want to make sure they get access to that right away.
Thank you, Arlen. Yes, thank you, thank you. It's exactly right. Okay, I don't hear any questions, and I want to be super respectful of folks' time. I do want to make some connections to other things happening in Illinois, so that you have the opportunity to build out not just a commitment to sharing this early learning teaching resource with someone, but to think about other opportunities for virtual learning experiences as we wait for online learning experiences to come back into our space. So there's my hooray for early learning slide, celebrating families, students, multi-generational. And I want to share that there are two really vibrant events coming up in February and in March. I'll start with the second one, which is the Kids Virtual Summit. The Kids Summit has happened annually the past 3 years. And this year, for 2015, we are popping a virtual summit into this school year. It is going to be filled with choice sessions, a wonderful keynote. It is free. It is free for kindergarten teachers, which is such an important recognition. You know, again, sort of supported by foundations here in Illinois to make sure that teachers have a place to celebrate, a place to share resources, and a place to connect. And I've put the link in here. So when you go back, you know, you'll have access to this deck from Early Learning Teaching Resources bit.ly to the kids website. And right now the save the date is available. And you'll see that here. It's the very first news and announcement. And I think by next week, for sure by Friday, the link will be available for the Kids Summit. So we would love to have folks joining that. That's our go day, we hope, for the website, fingers crossed. And you'll have the chance to hear from the kids coaching team, from ISB leadership, from early childhood champions, and make connections to each other. The breakout sessions are just really lovely. And the structure for this is going to be pretty unique. There'll be 2 hours on Monday, 2 hours Tuesday, 2 hours on Thursday. So you're doing a 6-hour conference, as we might do on a typical day off, but it's living in a different structure. The other thing I want to celebrate is that Erickson, our State Board of Ed, some other early learning partners are organizing a community of practice event. And I'm noticing that my hot link isn't hot here, but I'll do that the second we get off the phone or get off the Zoom. This is going to be teachers teaching teachers. So supported by great partners. There are, I know there's more than 10 sessions signed up. So we'll be using technology in order to be able to attend in this evening event just for an hour and a half on February 25th. 3 different sessions where teachers will have the opportunity to share what's working for them with virtual teaching. And then we'll also be sharing out a bit about the virtual, our early learning teaching resources, and continuing to shout out and celebrate some of the best teacher-facing resources that night. And today, I actually celebrated some of the leadership level resources, asking you to contextualize it. And when you return to this deck, when you click on that community of practice, you'll be taken to the Erickson Institute's policy Facebook page. And that's where they'll be sure to make sure that the invitation is updated. And it's just a great Facebook page to follow anyway for all of us that are in Illinois. So I'm going to check one more time to see if there are any questions or wonderings from folks who are on with us tonight. And again, thanks for folks who've done some introductions. Hello to everybody who is joining us virtually and watching the webinar after the fact. And I think we are wrapped with content, Arlen. I'm just going to use wait time one more time to see if there are any questions that are coming up from folks. I'm really bad at wait time. So Arlen, anything else on your end or from any of the other participants that are with us?
No, I greatly appreciate you sharing those resources. I've got an 8-month-old at home, so I was excited to see that there's some play-based opportunities there. I'm gonna have to go. Was it the Britannica site had the infants and toddlers?
Yes, you'll see there's actually, when you go into the database, we've made note of many of the sites that start from 0 to 5 and then take us into kinder. So you'll find a few things besides just the Ella Jenkins songs, which I know that you're a fan of too, Arlen. So we'll make that
Yes,
happen.
love me some Ella.
Yes. Arlen, can you give me two numbers between 1 and 18?
Yes, I will give you the number of 7 and 13.
Okay, then I'm going to have you do one other thing, which is just check the participant list for folks who are signed up for 7 and 13. I know that we're talking about online resources, but I couldn't help. One of my favorite new science-oriented books for early learning is called Small World. So I'm shouting out this text, and then I'm always thinking about SEL. Another really powerful early learning book, simple language and beautiful illustrations, is I Am Peace, a book of mindfulness. So if you, Arlen, can put the people who are 7 and 13 into the chat, if those folks can Q&A me their address, I will send you a book to thank you for joining us today. So you can name those names for me, Arlen, or put them in the chat, whatever works better for you, but must be present to win. So that's how I want to get people's addresses so they can get these prizes in their box and then read aloud to some kids in the next few days. We know that that's really so much of what our students need to see and hear from us.
Okay, number 7 was John Roberts, and number 13 was Michelle Casanova. I put your names in the chat. If you can get Lisa your information, she'll follow up with the books.
Awesome. And I'll put my email address here in case, John, I know you've already told us hello in the chat, so I know you were here earlier. Michelle, if you're here as well, shoot me an email and we will make sure the books Zoom, not figuratively, but literally through the mail your way so that you can share books with students. Such another really important way to support our early learning. That's a different workshop though. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm really grateful. I'm gonna just copy and paste. I'm actually gonna share my screen one last time just so that folks can see this main page and the link one more time for the early learning teaching resources. There's a chance for Amy and I to say I love you, but I really, really just want to make sure we're right here on this page, that we can share this link back with other educators, and that if you ever can't track it down again, find us on the ISB Keep Learning site. That's it, friends. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing these valuable resources. Appreciate all the attendees, especially since, Lisa, I failed to turn on the email reminder, which is why we had a lower attendance today in Zoom. I'm getting used to using Zoom, and with GoToWebinar, it was automatic. So I appreciate everybody who made it using the initial registration link and was able to attend. Like I mentioned at the top, this was recorded, and I will be sending out a link to this recording tomorrow to all attendees and registrants. And for all attendees, I'll be sending out an evaluation form that once completed, you can get your 1 hour of professional development credit for attending this webinar.
Thanks all, appreciate it. Stay safe and keep doing the great, hopeful work that you're doing in our communities. We appreciate it.